Happy November, folks, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Brendan Pfeiffer.
And I'm Chris Keating. Penn State women's soccer defeated Northwestern 2-1 this weekend to claim its 7th Big Ten tournament in program history. It was senior midfielder Haley Eckerd's 78th minute goal that sealed the win for the Nittany Lions. Penn State opens up NCAA tournament play this Friday on November 10th.
Penn State men's basketball got its preseason rolling with 2 exhibition wins over Lafayette and Bloomsburg this weekend. Penn State won both games by double digits and saw strong contributions from Tony Carr, who finished with 23 points against Lafayette, and Shep Garner, who led the way with 17 against Bloomsburg. Regular season play tips off against Campbell on Friday.
Penn State's men's hockey split its series with Mercyhurst this past weekend. The Lions took Saturday's game by the score of 7-5, and in the process, James Robinson bagged himself a hat trick. Though the biggest story of the weekend came when Andrew Sturtz broke Casey Bailey's school record for all-time goals scored when he netted his 46th career goal.
Penn State field hockey fell to Michigan 1-0 in the Big Ten championship game on Sunday afternoon. This was the Wolverines' 6th Big Ten title in program history, their first since 2011. The Nittany Lions begin NCAA tournament play against Delaware on Saturday, November 11th.
Up next, Jeffrey Morgan and Christian Kurapakis and Tom Johnston will be breaking down the American League MVP race.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Morgan here with Tom Johnston and Christian Kurapakis to discuss the American League MVP race. All right, Tom, we're going to start off with you. Who's your pick for the MVP and why?
Well, Jeff, my pick for the AL MVP is Jose Altuve of the Houston Astros, and quite simply, he just has the numbers to prove it. He won the batting title with a .346 batting average, and he also had a .957 OPS. A second point is those numbers have been a part of an elite special group that only been conquered by the likes of Tony Gwynn, Tris Speaker, Ty Cobb, Paul Molitor, just to name a couple. Another point I'd like to make is Altuve hit more than .290 or more every month of the season. That's saying something for a guy of his size, but also for a guy in the American League where talent is very good and very competitive, especially with pitching. He's also hit 347 before the All-Star break and 349 after. Those two numbers right there just show how good of not only a clutch hitter, but how good of a competitive hitter and how good of a consistent hitter he can be. Also, he has a .343 average with a .962 OPS versus lefties and a .349 after, and a .343 average or .349 average with a .970 OPS against righties. That just tells you who his strengths are and who his weaknesses are, but there's really no weakness. He's a pretty solid hitter against both lefties and righties. So therefore, whenever they scout him, it's no real place to scout him because he's very hittable. He's a very hittable hitter, and he can just flat out hit. There's no going around this kid.
All right, thanks, Tom. Christian, who do you have winning the MVP and why?
So on the ballot, it's Jose Altuve, Aaron Judge, Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Indians. And when you look at the first two, Judge and Altuve, I can't give the MVP to Aaron Judge because you can't give it to someone who just only struck out for about 2.5 months. Jose Altuve has the most consistent resume out of everyone on this ballot. The writer's going to love him. The .346 batting average, the writer's going to fall in love with that. They're going to drool all over it. But no man in Major League Baseball is more valuable to his club than Mike Trout is to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. You guys are going to both probably say it, both of you. Injury, because he hurt his thumb, missed a significant part of the season. So when he went down, the Los Angeles Angels were 45-47, and they had a 15% chance to make the postseason. He went down. He came back in on September 5th. He hit .315, 11 home runs in 45 games. The Angels, at one point, had the second American League wildcard spot. Their postseason team with him, a Double-A affiliate without him. So that's just the truth. We already know that. And you look at, he's a qualified hitter. He leads Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve in OBP, slugging, weighted on base average, OPS. I know you pointed at both batting average and OPS. He leads them in OPS. And win probability added, which doesn't really show you how well a player performed, but how valuable his at-bats were. For example, a first inning grand slam down 15-0, it's not going to mean as much as a grand slam tied in the bottom of the 13th. That's just the honest truth. Mike Trout led the entire sport in win probability added. No competition, the most valuable player. So is the best player Jose Altuve? Yeah, probably. But when you're talking value, it's Mike Trout. It's no competition. And people point of his games played. He played 114 games. People point to that and say, oh, you shouldn't win the MVP because you didn't play as many games. Frank Thomas, 1994, it was a strike year, 113 games, won the award. Mike Schmidt, 1981, 102 games, won the MVP. Gabby Hartnett, 1935, 116 games, won the MVP. Games don't matter. If you're valuable to your team and you are clearly the most valuable player, you should be the MVP. And I just look at Mike Trout's numbers and say, there's no one as valuable as him.
Some really good names on that list. Do you have anything to say to that, Tom? Or?
Yes, actually I do. You want to talk about value. Here's some value Altuve adds. Late in the game, he is a very clutch hitter, has a .448 average. That is beyond clutch. He also has a 1.209 on-base percentage. That just tells you how valuable Altuve is to the Astros. Realistically, in this day and age in baseball, you don't get guys that often have that type of performance, especially late in the games, especially whenever pressure gets to them.
Mike, see, you look at Mike Trout, if you proportion his games to a full season, the production he did produce on the field, 35 homers, 99 RBIs, 35 doubles, 20 stolen bases. If that's proportioned to a full season, that would have been the 13th guy in baseball history to accomplish those numbers in the same season. This is Mike Trout's best year, and we are just throwing it out the window because he was hurt for a short period of time. He's the MVP, and you're going to look at all the batting average. We're smarter than batting average. We are way smarter than that. Look at win probably added. Probably his clutch rating is higher too. I don't have the clutch rating off the top of my head, but his clutch rating is probably higher too. But we don't look at it because, again, the sample size isn't that great. It's large enough to win the award. He won't be setting a precedent for winning the award. I don't understand why we're not giving Mike Trout the respect that we should. He's not going to win it, but should he is the question.
All right. That's all for us tonight. We'll be right back with our NFL update.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Penn State Sports Night's coverage of the NFL. I'm Jason Marcus alongside Dylan Huberman and Jordan Calfone. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of the headlines coming out of this week in the NFL. One of the biggest stories, however, Texans rookie quarterback Deshaun Watson went down in practice earlier this week with a non-contact injury, resulted in a torn ACL, and he is out for the year. And an unfortunate start for the Deshaun Watson's career after he was leading the league in touchdown passes, tied with Carson Wentz. And it's just another case of injuries in this season that have derailed the NFL and its momentum. Dylan, I'll go to you. Do you think this is the biggest injury that the NFL has seen this week, or who do you think holds that spot?
This week, yes, it is Deshaun Watson. I mean, this is an MVP candidate. This guy came out from winning the college football playoff last season in Alabama to taking the NFL by storm. Top two receivers in the league. He has DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, the two leading touchdown guys in the NFL. However, I don't think it's the biggest injury yet thus far, even at his position. While he is great, Green Bay's number 12, Aaron Rodgers, he's got to be the biggest injury that I've seen so far this season.
Absolutely. I really think that this is it's hard to compete with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he is the best and most important player in this NFL, in my opinion. But I think that Deshaun Watson, just his injury and him out for the rest of the year, adds on to Whitney Merciless and, of course, J.J. Watt being out for the year in a season where Houston Texans fans had so much hope. That's all gone down the drain so quickly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for NFL fans to see so many superstars, like we mentioned, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Odell Beckham, just to name a few, that have gone down with injuries out for this year. But another couple big stories coming out of the NFL this week. As you guys know, the trade deadline has just passed. We saw a lot of blockbuster trades come through this week. Dylan, what do you think was the biggest trade to happen last week?
Well, two of these deals you see here, Kelvin Benjamin going to the Buffalo Bills and Jay Ajayi going to the Philadelphia Eagles, two blockbuster deals. However, neither one of those two, to me, is the big one. The big one has got to be Jimmy Garoppolo going from New England to San Francisco. He is going to be their franchise quarterback. He's going to be the guy for Kyle Shanahan out there come the future. They thought they were going to draft a quarterback. Now they don't have to. They got themselves a guy for the future, and I really think that he's going to turn the course of this franchise around.
For me, looking at this screen, I really think that it's Jay Ajayi for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not just looking at this 8-1 season, which is going well for them so far, obviously, but looking to the future. LeGarrette Blount's on a 1-year contract. You never know what's going to happen with Corey Clement, Wendell Smallwood. Darren Sproles is nearing the end of his career. So I think that bringing in Jay Ajayi, especially with only giving away a 4th-round pick, is a major steal for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Awesome. So if you had to give a name, who do you think is the biggest winner out of these trades?
The biggest winner out of these trades?
Yeah.
I got to say the New England Patriots, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
New England knows exactly how to use these late draft picks that they get. They got a 2nd-rounder, which is going to end up being one of the top picks in the 2nd round. Every single year, New England ends up getting somebody with those picks. They gave up a pick like that to get Brandon Cooks. They used a pick like that to get Jimmy Garoppolo. They used a pick to draft some running backs that have helped them. They used it to grab receivers that have helped them throughout the course of recent memory. They used it to draft Gronk a couple of years ago. They build off of those late 1st-rounders, early 2nd-rounders, and now they just got another one for a backup quarterback in their book.
Absolutely. Bill Belichick and Bob Kraft doing an awesome job in the draft. Jordan, I'll go to you. Who do you think has been hurt the most by these trades?
There is a clear biggest loser out of this trade deadline, and it is by far the Cleveland Browns. Had an opportunity to trade for the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, Aj Mccarron. Very stellar quarterback out of Alabama, but the front office had some mishaps, to say the least. And they really struggled in the front office department in communication with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that might have cost them 1 or 2 years this year and a bunch of wins going forward.
You see, that was a complicated situation. It got signed by the Bengals right before, and the Browns waltzed, and the coaches believe that Sashi Brown nixed that trade. So we'll see what happens. There could be some turmoil in the league on that one.
Absolutely. We'll see how that plays out. Last thing I want to talk to you guys about, obviously we just reached the midpoint of this season. Who's your front runner for MVP so far? Dylan, I'll start with you.
Carson Wentz. It's got to be. I mean, I'm watching this guy, and I really don't know what else to say. The guy is dominating the league. He's got the best football team in the NFL right now. I don't want to play them. I really don't see anybody else who can rival the kind of production that he's put up thus far. He's shown such improvement that the 2nd-year signal caller is putting up as good of numbers as Tom Brady is. Those are my 2 MVP candidates. It's got to be him ahead of Brady because of the headlines that he's grabbing with that 8-win team now. But the conversation to me is him at front, Brady a close 2nd, and then everyone else.
Jordan, what about you? Is it just a race between Wentz and Brady, or is there anyone else we should be looking at?
Right now, Wentz is the clear favorite, but you can never count Brady out. But to me, that's just not interesting. So I have to throw in a third to this race, and it has to be Alex Smith, quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Alex Smith has seen a resurgence going into his 30s now in the last year of his contract after the Kansas City Chiefs drafted a 1st-round quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, out of Texas Tech. So that kind of lit a fire under him. And going into this free agency period, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of money he makes if he stays in Kansas City and if he just goes somewhere else.
Nice. All right, well, that will do it for this week's NFL segment on Penn State Sports Night. Coming up next, we have Jorge Garcia, who will give us an update on the Champions League. Stay tuned.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Tengan hoy muy buen día. Soy Jorge García y estás viendo PSN-TV Deportes con la actualidad del fútbol mundial. Empezamos con la información relevante de la Champions League. El Real Madrid perdió de visitante 3-1 ante un Tottenham que empieza a ser el equipo revelación de esta temporada, con 2 primeros tantos convertidos por el joven Dele Alli al minuto 27 y como es caballero repite, convirtió también el segundo gol al minuto 56. Más adelante su compañero Christian Eriksen sellaría la victoria contundente con una tercera anotación que terminaría marcando la derrota y el mal rato hasta ese momento de la semana para el Real Madrid, que por medio del portugués Cristiano Ronaldo descontaría para su equipo poco antes que el juez diera por acabado el encuentro. También agregó Cristiano en una entrevista a la prensa que el Real Madrid era más fuerte la temporada pasada en la Champions, debido a que tenía un plantel de mayor experiencia, mencionando a Pepe, Morata y James como grandes ausentes de este gran conjunto. Hasta ahora, en el grupo H se encuentra clasificado el Tottenham a los octavos como primero con 10 puntos y el Real Madrid como segundo con 7 puntos. 5 más de ventaja que el Dortmund, que solo le lleva 2, y también lo sigue el Apoel, que cierra este grupo en la última posición. ¿Le alcanzará este nivel al Real para lograr lo inalcanzable, la tercera orejona en seguidilla? Ya veremos. Mientras tanto, en la Ciudad Luz, los petrodólares dan resultado con otra apoteósica victoria del PSG 5-0 ante el Anderlecht. Las anotaciones llegaron por medio de Marco Verratti. Al minuto 30, Neymar aportó el segundo tanto al minuto antes de acabar el primer tiempo. Y un hat-trick de Layvin Kurzawa en el segundo tiempo le daría el broche de oro al PSG para finalizar el encuentro. Este equipo tiene el tinte de campeón. ¿Será que sí se le da la tan anhelada Champions esta vez? Ya veremos. Ahora nos vamos para el gran clásico de la Superliga en el rentado del fútbol argentino que se llevó a cabo este domingo en la casa de River Plate. Con un monumental a reventar, River y Boca se enfrentaron rodeado del típico colorido, fiesta y pasión futbolero del sur del continente americano. La importante victoria fue para el conjunto Ceneice 2-1 ante un equipo millonario que no dio por vencido en ningún momento. Las anotaciones llegaron primero por el gran colombiano Edwin Cardona, por medio de un cobro magistral e inolvidable de tiro libre. Esto lo dejaría como jugador del partido, más allá que saliera expulsado injustamente en el segundo tiempo. La paridad del River fue anotada por su capitán gladiador Leonardo Poncio al minuto 69, pero 4 minutos más tarde el uruguayo Naitán Nández concretaría el gol de la victoria para Boca Juniors. El próximo cotejo no podrán jugar Ignacio Fernández de River Plate, quien salió expulsado al minuto 38, y Edwin Cardona de Boca, quien vio la cartulina roja en la etapa complementaria. Y para terminar, el atacante peruano Paolo Guerrero se perderá los juegos de repechaje ante Nueva Zelanda. Dio positivo en un examen de droga que se le practicó en el juego de Argentina durante las eliminatorias al Mundial de Rusia 2018. Lo curioso, que la sanción de este tipo suele ser regularmente por varios meses, si no por un año. Pero lo curioso, que el castigo impuesto por la FIFA al jugador de Flamenco fuera solo por un mes. Recordemos que Perú no va al Mundial desde el año 1982. ¿Será que se le quiere hacer el mar al delantero peruano o a su selección? Por eso el tan nombrado Acuerdo de Lima. Esto ha sido todo por hoy en PSN-TV Deportes. Soy Jorge García y muchísimas gracias por su sintonía. Hasta una próxima emisión.
Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of Penn State Sports Night. I'm Austin Smith, joined by Jack Hirsch, David Padalano. And after this weekend, we've seen Penn State now drop back-to-back games after a 27-24 loss to Michigan State. Now, what exactly went wrong for the Nittany Lions, and what do you guys think is next for them?
Well, after the weather delay in the second quarter, that certainly didn't help. And the offensive line didn't do its job in this game. Penn State turned into a one-dimensional offense. McSorley had throw the ball 47 times, and that's not what you want to do when you have Barkley in the backfield. Do the offensive line. McSorley was rushed a lot, overthrew a lot of balls, and it led to 3 interceptions. And along with that, there were really no holes open up for Barkley, and that's not what you want, and we'll get back to that later. Jack, what do you have to say about the defense?
Yeah, well, obviously, the defense wasn't that bad. They only gave up 27 points. But at the same time, they gave up 400 yards passing, which is, I mean, this secondary, the top three cornerbacks, Grant Haley, Christian Campbell, and Amani Arawawe, were graded as some of the best in the Big Ten. And in these past 2 games, they've given up over 720 yards of total offense, or of passing. And a lot of that isn't their fault. I know Grant Haley had a bad game against Ohio State, and Grant Haley and Christian Campbell kind of got benched towards the end of this Michigan State game. So it wasn't entirely their fault, though, because there wasn't any pass rush. Brian Lewerke was able to tear up the secondary of Penn State just because he had all this time. I remember there was one time where Shaka Toney got almost to the quarterback, and then he slipped because the field was so wet. So really a lot of the problems to do with the Penn State secondary are really problems on the defensive line, which is now down 2 starters with Ryan Buckles' injury, and we have no idea how long that's going to be for.
That's true. A lot of people thought this was going to be a bounce-back game for them, but didn't end up turning out that way. Now, with their second loss, the Nittany Lions have taken themselves out of playoff contention. What do you expect Penn State's postseason to look like come December when the committee decides who goes to what bowl?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's almost no chance now that they're going to make it to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. I think Ohio State would have to lose twice, as they would last week, even though they lost this past week. I think Michigan State has to lose twice. What you have to root for is for Penn State and Michigan to tie at 7-2. But they'll probably win these last 3 games. In fact, of any team ranked inside the top 25, they have the highest percentage, according to 538, of winning out. But what they need to do, there's almost no chance that they could make the college football playoff. I mean, for Penn State fans, just hope it's somewhere like the San Diego Holiday Bowl or somewhere south, Citrus Bowl. I mean, maybe Orange Bowl, but let's just get warm.
Yeah. Capital One Bowl, Outback Bowl.
Yeah.
Maybe a lower tier New Year's Bowl.
It's amazing because this time last year we were Penn State fans were so excited about a 10-2 regular season record, and now Penn State's 7-2, and so it's like a letdown. It's like 1 year, and that's changed so much. So I think what Penn State fans need to do is kind of think back and look at how far these teams have come. Where it's now that a 2-loss record is a letdown. But I mean, still, this team's got a lot of potential coming up. Really good recruiting class coming up. So
definitely. Now we've seen Saquon Barkley struggle to gain much ground in recent weeks. First against Ohio State, now Michigan State. And it's made the Heisman race much more competitive. Do you think that he's still in the lead, or do you think that someone's taken that spot over? What do you think?
He still had the lead after Ohio State, but right now, if we take a look at my Heisman rankings here, I'm putting the quarterback from Oklahoma at number 1. Baker Mayfield passed for nearly 600 yards in the Battle of Bedlam, and that with Saquon Barkley, I don't want to say he's inconsistent, but he this last 5 games since the Iowa game when he had over 200 yards, most of his yardage has come on 4 runs. The 36-yard run this past weekend, the 36-yard touchdown run against Ohio State, the long run against Michigan, and the long run against Northwestern in the third quarter. In 4 of his last 8 halves, he has 0 or fewer yards rushing. Even against Michigan, he had negative yardage after the first quarter. So, and that's not entirely his fault. Mainly, it's the offensive line's fault that, just can't sustain the holes. And he'll stay, and he'll wait a second, wait for that hole to develop, and then it just closes. So he's going to have a big last 3 games against lesser opponents, obviously. But also Oklahoma would have to lose to give him a chance at winning the Heisman. Bryce Love hasn't done anything this past week. He had about 60 yards, same as Barkley, and didn't play a week ago. But at number 4, I have Josh Adams from Notre Dame, who didn't have that great of a game this past weekend, even though Notre Dame had over 700 yards of total offense. But he still had that one stretch just a couple weeks ago where he had over 600 yards in 4 games. But I know you have someone else in your top 4.
Well, someone that's not on your board and who I love is Khalil Tate, the quarterback for Arizona. He's only a sophomore. I think you're a sophomore, right, Jack?
Yeah.
So he's a sophomore, and he's one of my Heisman leaders. Arizona last year went 3-9, and he propelled them into the national spotlight. They were ranked 23rd, dropped the game to USC, but that's still pretty impressive for a sophomore leading this team.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
That I'm standing here talking about him, and he's out there leading.
Playing national TV.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's 12th in the nation rushing, and he only has 95 rushing attempts. He's a dual-threat quarterback, and since the game on October 7th against Colorado, he's rushed over 130 yards and has at least 3 touchdowns in every game. Now, I don't really think he's going to win the Heisman necessarily this year, but there's a chance he gets invited to New York, and I really think he could be a Heisman candidate next year in the top 2.
At this point, I just want to go to New York.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that a former backup quarterback in Khalil Tate has made such strides that he has in the past few weeks. Now, that's all for this week's edition of Penn State Sports Night. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at PSSN-TV, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Get Bevo to LA.